supposed to be his final masterpiece of cruelty, a flawless ceremony, a high society audience, a bride chosen to elevate his status, and a secret surprise. He had personally requested one specific singer. Not because she was famous, not because she was talented, but because he wanted to watch her shatter. Lila Rowan, the woman he once loved, the woman carrying his child, the woman he left the moment she became inconvenient. He wanted her on stage, singing while he kissed another woman, a living reminder that she meant nothing. What Ethan didn't expect was that fate would twist harder than he ever could. Lila knew nothing about the trap waiting for her. All she knew was survival. The small apartment she lived in felt colder every week. Her pregnancy was now 6 months along, and her body felt heavier, slower. The electricity bill was overdue. Her fridge held more empty air than food. And her latest cafe performance earned her $42, barely a Band-Aid on a fatal wound. She placed a hand on her belly. "We're going to be okay," she whispered. But her voice wavered. She tried not to think about Ethan. His expensive watch, his cold voice, the way he had looked at her the day she told him she was pregnant. As if she had inconvenienced him. As if her love, her heart, her body meant nothing. A soft knock broke the silence. "It's Tessa," came the warm voice of her best friend. Lila opened the door, and Tessa practically stormed in carrying 2 grocery bags. "No arguments," she said. "I'm feeding you." "Tessa, you don't have to." "Oh, I do," she snapped lightly. "You're growing a human, not a cactus. You need real food." Lila laughed weakly, but her eyes stung with gratitude. Still, something inside her whispered uneasily, as if danger was waiting, creeping closer. "Hey," Tessa said softly, noticing her expression. "You're thinking about him again, aren't you?" "Sometimes," Lila admitted. "I feel like Ethan isn't done with me, like he's still holding something over my life." Tessa frowned. "He's gone. Good riddance. Forget him." Lila tried, but the dread didn't lift. The next morning, while washing dishes, her old phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Hello?" she answered cautiously. A polished female voice responded. "Hello. Is this Lila Rowan? My name is Miranda Cole. I'm coordinating a luxury wedding next month, and we're seeking a female vocalist with strong emotional tone." Lila's pulse quickened. "Yes, that's me. The groom personally requested someone who could, and I quote, make the room ache. Your demo was exactly what he wanted." Lila froze. Her stomach tightened. Make the room ache. That was something Ethan used to whisper to her after nights she sang for him, a phrase too specific, too familiar, but she forced the thought away. It couldn't be him. It couldn't. "What's the pay?" she asked quietly. $3,000. For one night," Miranda said. Lila almost dropped the phone. $3,000. The difference between eviction and stability, between fear and hope, between uncertainty and a crib for her baby. "Yes," she breathed. "I accept." "Great. I'll send all the details now." She hung up and opened her email immediately. And there it was. Bold letters, clear names, undeniable. The wedding of Mr. Ethan Hale and Miss Celeste Ward. The room swayed. She gripped the table. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Ethan, her ex, her child's father. He was getting married. And he was the one who asked for her. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Miranda. "The groom said your voice is unforgettable, and exactly what he wants for his special day." A cold shiver ran through her. He knew. He knew she was pregnant. He knew she was struggling. He knew hiring her would hurt. This was cruelty. Lila sank onto the couch, staring blankly at the contract. Every instinct screamed, "Say no, run." But then she looked at the pile of overdue bills, the eviction warning, and finally at her belly. Maybe survival is revenge, she whispered. Tessa's reaction isn't shock, it's strategy. And her plan will turn Ethan's cruelty into Lila's first step toward power. When Lila told Tessa about the job offer, her voice trembled so hard she could barely finish the story. Tessa sat silently for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, to Lila's utter shock, she said quietly, "You should do it." Lila blinked. "What? Are you serious?" "Tessa, it's his wedding. He left me. He left us. And now he wants me to sing while he marries someone else. That's not a job. That's humiliation. Only if you play the role he expects," Tessa replied, her tone calm but firm. She reached across the table and took Lila's hand. "Listen to me, honey. Ethan thinks he's still in control. He thinks you're fragile and broken. He thinks he can make you small again. But you're stronger now. If you take this job, you'll be the one standing in that room, earning money, singing beautifully, while he is the one trapped pretending his life is perfect." Lila shook her head. "I can't face him, Tessa. Not like this. I'll fall apart." Tessa leaned closer. "Or you'll rise. Look, you need that money. Your baby needs that money. Why should you throw away $3,000 just to protect his pride? Don't give him that power. Take the job, take the money, and take your strength back." Lila's chest tightened. She wanted to believe that. She really did, but she couldn't imagine standing in front of Ethan again, pretending she wasn't breaking inside. "You really think I can do this?" she whispered. "I know you can," Tessa said with conviction. "You've survived heartbreak, loneliness, and a world that's been unfair to you. Singing at one wedding, his wedding, is nothing compared to what you've already overcome." That night, Lila sat at her old laptop, staring at the email draft for hours. Her hand trembled as she typed, "Dear Rachel, thank you for this opportunity. I accept the job. I'll perform at the wedding on November 20th at the Sapphire Crest Hotel. Best regards, Lila Rowan." She hit send before she could change her mind. Then she sat back, exhaling shakily. It was done. There was no turning back. The next morning she woke up with a strange feeling. Not relief, not fear, but something between them. Determination. Days passed, and Lila tried to focus on preparing, but as the wedding date drew closer, something unexpected began happening. Words started swirling in her head, melodies, fragments of lyrics, emotions she couldn't silence. It was as if her pain had found its own language. One evening, she sat down at her old keyboard, closed her eyes, and let her fingers move. The first notes came like rain, soft, sorrowful, steady. Then her voice followed, shaky but full of truth. "You left me standing in the storm, said I wasn't worth your name, but love stayed when you walked away. Love stayed. Love stayed." Tears fell freely, but she didn't stop. "You chased gold, you chased glory, but lost what money couldn't buy. A heart that loved you all the same. A love that never said goodbye." When she finished, the silence in her small apartment felt sacred. The song wasn't perfect. It was real. Tessa came by the next day and found Lila scribbling notes in her journal. "What's that?" she asked, peering over her shoulder. "A song," Lila said softly. "I don't know why, but I had to write it. It's called You Left Me, But Love Stayed. You're not thinking about singing that at the wedding, are you?" Lila hesitated. "No, I mean, probably not. Rachel already gave me a list of love songs, safe ones. But maybe this song is just for me, to get it all out." "Good," Tessa said, though her eyes softened. "Because if you sang that at his wedding, you might burn the whole place down." Lila smiled faintly. "Maybe some fires need to happen." Tessa laughed, but she could see it. The spark in Lila's eyes, small but fierce. The same spark that used to light up every stage she stood on. For the first time in a long time, Lila didn't feel like a victim. She felt like a woman with something powerful to say. Across the city, Ethan Hale poured himself another glass of whiskey and looked out the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse. He smiled faintly, rehearsing how perfect his wedding would be. His bride, Celeste, came from old money, her family well-connected. The guest list was elite, the venue breathtaking, and the singer, his ex, would stand on stage, a living symbol of his victory. Everything was falling into place. But what he didn't know was that sometimes the past doesn't stay buried. Sometimes it walks into your wedding, carrying a song that will destroy your illusion of perfection. The wedding plans move forward, But Lila's first unexpected encounter with Ethan will happen much sooner than she thinks, and nothing will prepare her for it. The week before the wedding, Lila received a large box at her doorstep. Inside lay an elegant midnight blue gown, its fabric soft and flowing, the kind that shimmered faintly when it caught the light. It was the dress Rachel Monroe had sent for her to wear at the event. Lila ran her fingers over the smooth fabric, half in awe, half in dread. It was beautiful, far too beautiful for someone who felt so broken. She hung it up carefully, staring at it from across the room. That dress was her ticket into Ethan's world again, the one that had once rejected her. Her phone buzzed. It was Rachel. "Hi, Lila. Just confirming rehearsal is Thursday at 2 p.m. at Sapphire Crest Hotel. Please arrive on time for sound check. The bride and groom will both be there. Looking forward to seeing you." Lila's stomach dropped. She had been hoping to avoid Ethan until the wedding day itself, but now she'd have to face him in just 2 days. That night, Tessa found her sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the blue gown. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Tessa said gently. "I have to see him Thursday," Lila whispered. "In person, before the wedding." Tessa sat down beside her. "Then we'll prepare. Right now. You're going to walk in there calm, graceful, untouchable. You're not the same girl he left, remember that." Lila gave a weak smile. "Sometimes I feel like I'm pretending to be strong." "Then pretend until it becomes real," Tessa said. "You've already survived worse." That night they practiced. Tessa stood in for Ethan, cold and arrogant, while Lila rehearsed how to stay composed. "Hello, Mr. Gray," she said evenly, her hands trembling slightly. "Again," Tessa instructed, arms crossed. "Say it like he's just a client, not a ghost from your past." By the time they finished, Lila could say his name without her voice breaking. The armor around her heart felt solid enough to get her through the rehearsal. At least that's what she told herself. Lila stood outside the towering glass doors of the Sapphire Crest Hotel, her heart pounding against her ribs. The building gleamed in the afternoon light, a monument to wealth and vanity. She wore a simple black dress that stretched over her belly, her hair tied neatly in a bun, her folder of sheet music clutched tightly in her hand. "You can do this," she whispered to herself. "You can do this." Inside, the air smelled of lilies and luxury. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen rain from the ceiling, and the marble floors reflected everything in perfect shine. "Ms. Bennett?" a voice called. A young woman in a sleek suit approached, smiling brightly. "I'm Rachel Monroe. So lovely to finally meet you in person. Come, let's go to the ballroom. Mr. and Mrs. Gray-to-be are already there." Lila's legs felt heavy, but she followed. When the grand double doors opened, the sight took her breath away. The ballroom was enormous, white roses and silver ribbons everywhere, sunlight spilling through tall windows. And there, at the front, near the stage, stood Ethan Gray, remembered. Tall, handsome, immaculately dressed. But his beauty was still as cold as marble. He was speaking to the event coordinator when he turned and saw her. For just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Shock, guilt, maybe even regret. But then his face smoothed over into that familiar, controlled expression. "Ah," he said lightly, loud enough for everyone to hear. "The entertainment has arrived." The word entertainment hit Lila like a slap, but she forced a calm smile and replied evenly, "Good afternoon, Mr. Gray. I'm Lila Bennett, your vocalist for the ceremony." Ethan's eyes flicked briefly to her pregnant belly, then away. "Yes, I've heard good things. Let's get started, shall we?" He didn't acknowledge their past, didn't mention their child, pretended she was a stranger, and somehow that hurt worse than cruelty. Then a new voice cut through the air, a woman's, elegant and refined. "Darling, the florist wants your approval on the centerpieces." Lila turned and saw her. Claire Donovan, the bride. She was everything Lila wasn't. Tall, slender, and glowing in a designer dress that probably cost more than Lila's rent for a year. Diamond earrings sparkled against her blonde hair. Her gaze landed on Lila's stomach, then drifted up with polite curiosity. "And who's this?" Claire asked. "The singer," Ethan said quickly. "Lila Bennett." "I see," Claire replied, her tone cool but not unkind. "Well, I hope you know appropriate songs for a wedding. Nothing too emotional, please. We want elegant, traditional, something that fits the moment." "Of course," Lila said smoothly, holding up her folder. "I've prepared the selections Rachel sent." Rachel jumped in cheerfully. "Wait till you hear her voice. It's absolutely breathtaking." They began the sound check. Lila sang through the traditional songs Ave Maria, At Last, and others Rachel had chosen. Her voice filled the grand ballroom, rich and clear, echoing like light through glass. Even Claire looked impressed. Ethan, however, stood at the back of the room with his arms crossed, his jaw tight. When she finished, there was a brief silence before Rachel started clapping. "Wonderful. You'll be perfect." Ethan walked closer to the stage, his face expressionless. He leaned in slightly, his words quiet but cutting. "Your voice is still good," he said. "I'm glad you can work. I'm sure you need the money." Lila met his gaze without flinching. "Thank you, Mr. Gray," she replied evenly. "I'm very grateful for the opportunity." For the first time, his mask slipped just a little. He wasn't expecting her grace, her calm. She could see the annoyance in his eyes before he turned and walked away. As Lila packed up her things, she told herself one thing: you're not his victim anymore. But before she could leave, a quiet voice stopped her. "Excuse me, Miss Bennett?" It was Claire Donovan, and the question she was about to ask would shake Lila to her core. Claire has one simple question for Lila, a question that could unravel everything. And what Lila chooses to say next might change both of their lives forever. Lila froze, her hand still on her music folder. Claire Donovan stood just a few steps away, her perfect posture faltering slightly, as if she wasn't sure whether she should have approached at all. "Yes," Lila said cautiously. Claire hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Your voice is remarkable. I've never heard anything quite like it. Did you study professionally?" Lila shook her head. "No, I learned from my grandmother and from singing in church. I never had formal training." Claire nodded slowly. "That's surprising. There's something so raw about your sound. It doesn't feel rehearsed. It feels real." Her voice softened, almost wistful. "Most singers are technically flawless, but empty. You're the opposite." Lila didn't know what to say. Compliments like that didn't come from people like Claire Donovan, women who seemed born into beauty and privilege. So she simply murmured, "Thank you," filled only by the distant echo of footsteps and the faint hum of the ballroom lights. Then Claire's gaze drifted inevitably to Lila's rounded belly. "When are you due?" she asked gently. "February," Lila answered, instinctively resting her hand there. "Your first?" "Yes." Claire nodded again, but this time her composure cracked ever so slightly. Her eyes flickered with something uncertain, something vulnerable. "Can I ask you something? And please be honest," she whispered. Lila's heartbeat quickened. "Okay." Claire took a breath, steadying herself. "Do you think Ethan is a good man?" The words hit Lila like a thunderclap. For a moment she couldn't breathe. Of all the questions in the world, this one was the most dangerous. What could she say? That Ethan Gray was the father of her unborn child? That he had thrown her aside like a piece of trash the moment she became inconvenient? That he'd orchestrated this entire situation just to watch her squirm? But when she looked into Claire's eyes, Lila didn't see arrogance or cruelty. She saw fear, a bride about to marry a man she didn't fully trust. "Why are you asking me that?" Lila said softly. Claire glanced toward the ballroom doors, making sure they were alone. Because everyone keeps telling me how lucky I am, she confessed, her voice trembling. My parents adore him. The magazines call us the power couple of the year. But something doesn't feel right. He's perfect, yes, but it's like he's performing perfection. And when I saw the way you looked at him today, it was like you saw behind the performance. What did you see? Recognition, Claire whispered. Like you already know who he really is. Lila's throat tightened. For a split second, she wanted to tell her everything. The truth about Ethan, the baby, the betrayal. To save this woman from the heartbreak she herself had lived. But she couldn't. Not here. Not like this. And if she did, she'd lose the job. The money she desperately needed for her child. So she said the only thing she could. I think only you can decide that, Claire. I don't know him well enough to judge. Technically true, but entirely a lie. Claire studied her for a long moment, searching her face for hidden meaning. Then she nodded slowly, though her eyes glistened with unshed tears. You're right. It's my choice. I just needed to ask someone who isn't blinded by him. She smiled faintly, a sad, hollow smile. Thank you, Lila, for being honest. Everyone else just tells me how perfect he is. As she turned and walked away, her gown brushing softly against the marble floor, Lila felt an unexpected pang. Not of jealousy, but pity. Claire had everything money could buy, but not the one thing that mattered. Truth. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Lila lay awake, Claire's question echoing in her head. Do you think Ethan is a good man? At 2 a.m., she got up, sat at her keyboard, and stared at the sheet music for You Left Me, But Love Stayed, her song, the one she had written in pain and truth. She ran her fingers over the keys, playing the opening chords softly. The melody rose like a confession, and for the first time she thought, what if she sang this song at the wedding? It would expose Ethan's lies in front of everyone. It would tell the truth he'd buried under luxury and charm. But it would also destroy her career before it even began. No one would hire a singer who caused a scandal like that. Don't do it, she whispered to herself. Just sing the songs they asked for. Get paid. Go home. But another voice inside her, the one she'd been trying to silence, spoke louder. What about the truth? What about Claire? What about every woman who's ever been made to feel small? Lila closed her eyes, tears sliding down her cheeks. She made a quiet promise to herself. She would bring the song's sheet music to the wedding. She wouldn't decide until the moment came, but she would be ready. As the wedding day dawns, Lila prepares for the hardest performance of her life. But one choice, made in a single breath, will turn a fairy tale ceremony into a reckoning the world will never forget. Cold and clear, the kind of morning where the air itself felt sharp with anticipation. Lila woke before sunrise, her heart pounding so loudly she could hear it in her ears. She moved quietly around her apartment, taking her time, washing her hair, doing her makeup, smoothing the soft waves that framed her face. The midnight blue gown Rachel had sent hung by the window, glowing faintly in the pale light. When she slipped it on, it fit perfectly, flowing around her body soft against her growing belly. For a moment, she barely recognized herself in the mirror. You can do this, she whispered to her reflection. You are strong. You are enough. The baby kicked lightly, as if in agreement. By mid-afternoon, a black car arrived to take her to the Sapphire Crest Hotel. The driver smiled politely but said nothing, and Lila was grateful. Her hands shook the entire ride as the city blurred past. Every mile closer felt like another step toward a storm she couldn't avoid. When she arrived, Rachel greeted her warmly. You look stunning. We're so excited to have you here, Lila. Everything's going to be perfect. Perfect. The word twisted like irony in her stomach. In the preparation room, she met the other performers, the string quartet who would play during the ceremony. They were kind, professional, unaware that the singer standing beside them was holding a secret that could tear the day apart. At 5 p.m., the ballroom was ready. White roses and candles filled every corner. 300 guests in glittering attire sat in perfect rows. The chandeliers shimmered like captured stars. Lila peeked from behind the curtain, her breath catching. Ethan stood at the altar in a tailored tuxedo, looking calm, confident, radiant. A man the world admired. But to her eyes, he looked hollow, like a sculpture polished to hide the cracks. Rachel appeared beside her. 5 minutes, she whispered. The bride's about to walk. Lila nodded, gripping her folder tightly. Inside were 2 sets of sheet music, the approved love songs, and her song. The dangerous one, the true one. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Don't do it, she told herself. Just sing the safe songs. Get paid. Leave. Of her eyes filled with doubt and fear, lingered like a ghost in her mind. Take your position, Rachel whispered. Lila stepped onto the stage. The piano gleamed beneath the soft lights, and a hush fell over the room. Guests turned to look at her, some curious, others murmuring when they noticed her rounded belly. She sat, adjusted the microphone, and nodded to the pianist. The music began. Soft, sacred. Ave Maria. Her voice rose gently, flowing through the air like silk. Even those who came for spectacle fell silent, caught in the beauty of it. As she sang, the grand doors opened. Claire Donovan appeared in her ivory gown, a vision of perfection and fragility. Every head turned, every guest sighed. But Lila saw what others missed: the tremor in Claire's hand, the tightness in her smile, the doubt still hiding behind the shimmer. The song ended as Claire reached the altar. The guests sat. The minister began the vows. Lila waited, her hands trembling on the folder in her lap. Soon it would be time for her second performance, during the signing of the marriage certificate. That was her cue. The minister's voice echoed. By signing this document, you seal your vows before God and witnesses. Ethan picked up the pen, signing with practiced grace. Claire hesitated slightly, glancing at him, then down at the paper. Rachel leaned toward Lila and whispered, "You're up next." Lila stood, the folder heavy in her hands. Every eye turned to her. The pianist gave her a questioning look, waiting for the cue. She opened the folder. Her breath caught. The 2 choices stared back at her. At last, and you left me, but love stayed. She looked at Ethan. He was smiling for the cameras, smug and unshaken. She looked at Claire, her expression uncertain, her hand trembling above the page. And in that instant, Lila knew. She turned to the pianist and whispered, "Follow my lead." He blinked in confusion. "This isn't the one we rehearsed." "I know," she whispered. "Just trust me." He nodded slowly. The ballroom was silent. 300 people waiting, cameras flashing. Ethan frowned. "Is there a problem?" he called out. "No problem," Lila said clearly, her voice steady. "I'd just like to perform something special." Ethan waved dismissively, not wanting a scene. "Fine. Whatever." He had no idea. Lila took a deep breath. Her hands stopped shaking. Her voice, when it came, was soft but certain. "You left me standing in the rain. Said I wasn't worth your name." Gasps rippled through the guests. The melody was haunting, raw, intimate. Ethan froze, color draining from his face. Lila's voice grew stronger. "You wanted gold. You wanted fame, but threw away what had no price. A heart that loved you without shame. A love that never needed lies. The whispers spread like wildfire. People began to look between the singer and the groom. Claire's expression shifted from confusion to realization. Lila's voice trembled, but she didn't stop. You left me, but love stayed in the child I carry every day. You left me, but I'm not afraid. Because love stayed. Love stayed. The ballroom erupted in murmurs, phones lifted, cameras rolled. And for the first time in his life, Ethan Gray looked afraid, humiliated, surrounded by hundreds of staring eyes. Lila stepped away from the microphone, her body trembling. The applause came slowly, one person clapping, then another, until half the room was standing. Not polite applause, powerful applause. Some people were crying, others were shouting words of encouragement. Brave, someone yelled. You told the truth. Ethan turned to her, his face red with rage. You'll regret this, he hissed. You've destroyed everything. Sir, a deep voice cut through the chaos. That's enough, Ethan. It was Marcus, his longtime friend, the only one who had ever known the truth. He stepped forward, his expression cold. She didn't destroy anything, Marcus said. You did. Stay out of this, Ethan snapped. Marcus shook his head. I can't, because what you just did isn't business. It's cruelty, and everyone here finally saw it. The crowd murmured in agreement. Lila's knees nearly buckled. She had done it. She had survived. But what she didn't know, what no one in that ballroom could predict, was that this moment wasn't the end. It was only the beginning, because someone's phone had captured the entire performance, and by morning, the whole world would know her name. The next day, Lila wakes up to discover she's gone viral. The truth has spread to millions. But fame brings new opportunities and new dangers. The next morning, sunlight poured through the thin curtains of Lila's small apartment. For a few blissful seconds, she forgot the chaos, the gasps, the storm she had unleashed at the Sapphire Crest Hotel. Then she remembered. The song, the wedding, the silence after the last note, and Claire walking away, tears and strength in her eyes. Lila sat up slowly, pressing a hand to her stomach. The baby kicked, as if reminding her, You did it, Mama. A knock rattled the door. Lila, open up! It was Tessa's voice, breathless, urgent, half laughing, half crying. Lila shuffled to the door, still dazed. Tessa. It's barely 9. Before she could finish, Tessa burst in, holding her phone like a trophy. You're everywhere. What are you talking about? This. Tessa shoved the phone into her hands. On the screen was a video titled, Singer Exposes Groom's Betrayal at Luxury Wedding, the most powerful 5 minutes you'll ever watch. The thumbnail showed Lila on stage, her face glowing under the chandelier lights, tears glistening as she sang. It already had 2 million views. Lila stared at the screen in disbelief. No, this can't be real. Oh, it's real, Tessa said, pacing the room. Someone in the audience recorded everything. It's on every platform, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. It's trending in 30 countries. They're calling you the truth singer. Lila scrolled through the comments. Thousands of them. This woman is a queen. She turned her pain into power. I'm crying. This hit my soul. Her voice is unreal. Someone signed her already. Her phone buzzed endlessly. Messages, emails, missed calls. Her name was everywhere. Her performance had spread like wildfire overnight. I didn't mean for this, Lila whispered. I didn't want fame. I just wanted to tell the truth. Tessa smiled softly. Maybe the world needed to hear it. You weren't just singing for yourself, Lila. You were singing for every woman who's ever been broken and told to stay quiet. Tears filled Lila's eyes. She hadn't realized how deeply her story had connected with others, how her pain had become a voice for so many. "Still," she said weakly, "Ethan's going to come after me for this. He'll find a way." "Oh, he's got bigger problems," Tessa said with a grin. "Check the news." She tapped another link. A headline flashed across the screen. Coal Industries CEO faces board inquiry after viral wedding scandal. Below it, Ethan's picture, disheveled, angry, his once perfect image unraveling. Lila read the first lines aloud, her voice trembling. Following the viral video exposing Ethan Gray's alleged affair and abandonment of a pregnant woman, Coal Industries Board has called an emergency meeting to evaluate his position as CEO. She covered her mouth. "Oh my God." "Looks like Karma RSVP'd to the wedding, too," Tessa muttered. Across the city, in his glass penthouse, Ethan sat alone. His phone buzzed with calls he refused to answer. Board members, lawyers, journalists. His face was everywhere, for all the wrong reasons. He poured himself another drink, but even the whiskey couldn't dull the reality. The internet had crowned him the heartless groom. Marcus had texted him once, "Apologize publicly, show remorse, it's your only way out." But Ethan couldn't. Pride was a poison he refused to stop drinking. When his lawyer called, he finally answered, his voice cold. "Don't start," Ethan snapped. "You've become a public villain," the lawyer said flatly. "Sponsors are pulling out, your stock's dropping, and your board is furious. The only thing that might help is a public apology. To Lila." Ethan slammed his glass down. "Never." The lawyer sighed. "Then I hope you like watching your empire burn." He hung up. Ethan stared out at the skyline, his kingdom, and for the first time, he felt small. Meanwhile, back in Lila's apartment, her phone rang again. An unknown number. "Should I answer it?" she asked. Tessa shrugged. "Could be the president by now. Go for it."
Then picked up. "Hello. Hello, is this Lila Bennett?" A calm, professional voice. "My name is Dana Foster. I'm a music producer with Emberlight Studios. I watched your video, along with the rest of the planet, and I'd love to talk about your future." "My future?" Lila repeated, stunned. "Yes," Dana said warmly. "You have something rare, authenticity. Your voice, your story, it's real. The world's moved by it. I think you could have a career making music that means something. Let's meet this week, just to talk." No pressure. Lila sat frozen. I don't even know what to say. I'm 7 months pregnant. I live in a tiny apartment. I'm not some star. "That's exactly why people love you," Dana said. "You're real, Lila. And real is what the world's been waiting for." When the call ended, Lila just stared at Tessa, who was grinning from ear to ear. "Looks like the universe finally decided it's your turn," Tessa said softly. Lila exhaled, her hand resting on her belly. "Maybe this isn't the end after all," she whispered. "Maybe it's the beginning." As Lila steps into a new life filled with opportunity, Ethan faces the collapse of everything he built. But fate isn't done yet, because redemption, revenge, and reckoning are still waiting in the final chapter. 2 months later, winter had arrived. Soft snow dusted the streets, muffling the city's usual noise. Lila sat by her apartment window, cradling a cup of tea, her other hand resting gently on her rounded belly. The world outside had changed, and so had she. Her video had crossed over 100 million views. News outlets still replayed that moment. Her voice, her courage, her truth. Music producers reached out from across the world. Some wanted contracts, some wanted interviews. But Lila chose carefully. She didn't want fame for scandal. She wanted meaning. She wanted to turn the pain that once broke her into something that could heal others. She agreed to one interview. Just one. Just honesty over drama. Tessa helped her get ready, fluffing her hair, straightening her simple cream dress. "You nervous?" she asked. Lila smiled faintly. A little, but mostly grateful. I get to tell my story my way. When the cameras rolled, the host smiled warmly. Lila Bennett, or as the internet knows you, the truth singer. You've inspired millions. What do you want people to take away from your story? Lila thought for a moment, her hand brushing her belly. That strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it sings quietly through pain. Sometimes the hardest thing you can do is tell the truth and keep going. The host nodded, touched. And how are you doing now? Lila's eyes softened. Better than ever. I'm expecting my baby soon. I've signed with a label that lets me write my own music. My first album will be called Love Stayed. Beautiful title, the host said. What does it mean to you? Lila smiled. It means that even when someone walks away, love doesn't have to. It stays in forgiveness, in strength, in new beginnings. The audience applauded gently. When the interview aired, comments poured in, words of love, admiration, gratitude. Her story had become more than gossip. It had become a reminder that truth could rise from heartbreak like light through glass. Meanwhile, in a cold, empty penthouse high above the city, Ethan Gray watched the same interview. His empire was gone. The board had forced his resignation. His name had become a cautionary tale whispered behind closed doors. He hadn't spoken to Claire since that day. She'd left the country, determined to rebuild her life far from his shadow. And Lila, he hadn't seen her since the wedding. But as he watched her now on the television screen, glowing, calm, full of grace, something inside him broke. He reached for his phone more than once, wanting to call her, to apologize, to say the words he'd never had the courage to say. His thumb hovered over her name and stopped. He knew it was too late. Some things couldn't be fixed. Instead, he whispered softly to the empty room, "I'm sorry." No one heard it but him. A few weeks later, the first snow of the new year fell as Lila held her newborn daughter in her arms. The baby was tiny, warm, and perfect, her eyes wide and curious, her fingers curling around Lila's thumb. "Hey there, little one," Lila whispered. "We did it. We're safe now." Tessa stood beside her, tears in her eyes. "She's beautiful, Lila. Have you thought of a name?" Lila smiled down at her daughter. "Grace," she said softly, "because that's what saved me." Outside, snowflakes drifted like blessings against the window pane. In the corner of the room, her phone buzzed, a message from her producer. "Your single, Love Stayed, just hit #1 worldwide." She laughed through her tears, holding her baby close. "You see that, Grace? The world heard our song." And as she rocked her child, her voice hummed softly, the same melody that once broke the silence, but now carried peace instead of pain. "You left me, but love stayed. Through the storm and through the ache. You left me, but I'm not afraid, because love stayed." The camera of life seemed to pull back, from the small apartment glowing with warmth, from the mother and child framed in soft light. Because in the end, revenge had never been her victory. Truth was, healing was, love was. And as the last note faded, so did the pain of the past, leaving only the melody of a woman who found her voice again and never lost it. Some stories end with revenge. Lila's ended with redemption. Because sometimes the most powerful song you can sing is the one that sets you free.